Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. More Birthright here as we get to the last of the Awnshegh realms of the Voss territories here. And it is one of the major Awnshegh, certainly for this part of the world in the game here. So the Raven's Realm, obviously dealing with the Raven. Ust-Atka is the sort of actual name for it. But as it says here, it has labored under the Raven's rule, and the Raven is no slouch. Level 17 fighter, level 14 wizard. Insane bloodline here, 77 strength, lawful evil. We'll get into that more when we cover all the Awnshegh individually, but there's a lot here too. So he's ruled for 10 long years, and the Awnshegh has yet to face a serious challenge to his rule. Inhabiting the body of Tsar Lenski, former regent of the realm, the Raven has made little secret of his supernatural origins. Without a doubt, his people know they are ruled by an Awnshegh, but fear keeps them well in line. As a realm, though, it's actually considered neutral. And again, we'll get into more detail with when we cover him when we get there finally in Blood Enemies. And we'll get to the map here. We'll show that for a second. So unlike the Manticore, which is a very resides over a small, relatively small domain, the Raven's Realm is actually quite substantial here and borders on several territories. So kind of a threat to many. So after coming to power, the Raven in the body of Tsar Lenski systematically exterminated or subjugated nearly all of the former Tsar's allies, enemies, and rivals within the realm, basically just cleaning house. A few managed to flee into neighboring realms, only to be sought out and destroyed by the Raven's personal assassins guild, the Wing. Fun. Now, only a few pockets of resistance to the Raven's rule still exist within Ust-Atka, and they have little effect on his operations. But could be a chance for an enterprising party to make that not so. Law basically controls virtually all the established law, but has made little effort to increase his influence. This has allowed Pietro's men, resistance faction, to grab power in a few small areas, but again, not a serious challenge. Temples, unimpressed by Cerullia's deities, but mindful of the Voss priest's ability to sway a population, the Raven destroyed the one true church of Vossgard in Ust-Atka. It still survives in Yedensky under a new regent, and has built up a puppet church with a puppet regent, the Almighty Temple of Belanik. While its priests are actual priests of Belanik, they all take their orders from the Raven, though. And as guilds go, he has established the Wing as an assassin-slash-spy guild soon after he assumed the throne of Ust-Atka. He still uses the guild as a source of information, and as an assassination tool and for intrigue as well. But he also has put its resources to use for actual trade purposes. Surprisingly, the Raven trades quite often with neighboring realms, most often the Manticore's domain, Kal-Kalathor, and Ravninodensk, selling food in exchange for ore and other supplies. But the Raven pays little attention to his realm's actual trade. The Hunters, a bandit guild, have survived by preying on the Wing's trade, but not too often, and even Pietro's men have raised gold for their cause through a small guild. So, sources, though, all provinces in the Raven's domain contain source holdings of some level for his use. He maintains an elaborate and expensive ley line network throughout the realm as well, so his powers can't be easily diminished. And provinces, as we said, there's quite a few. He does have most of the law, as we can clearly tell, but Pietro's men have actually taken a few here and there. Temples, we can see where the church is spread out. Guilds, different activity there, and all the sources belong to him. As regent, the Raven favors the iron hand inside the steel gauntlet technique. So yeah, he's pretty rough. Brooks no rivals, although there do seem to be plenty, even though they're pretty small operations. Only his preoccupation with the Shadow World and his desire to conquer more territories keep him from ruling his realm to ultimate limits, which would be a scary proposition. It's already pretty formidable as we get into more of the details here. But yeah, if he could actually just focus on building up his realm, it would probably start rivaling the Gorgon in not too long of an order. A couple interesting inroads here, right? As far as players, we could have our players start in the realm, maybe as part of one of the various resistance type of groups, or maybe some that are actually working under like the Wing, for example, but then maybe gradually start having a change of mind and then join the resistance. There's all kinds of fun ways we could bring that in for a campaign. Moving on, though, some of his strengths. So, possessed of extreme personal power, the Raven holds claim to the title Son of Azrai, and none can wrest it from him. Though few of the wise believe the ancient Lord of Shadow actually sired a child, they cannot dispute the Raven's place among the legendary infamous Lost. As one of the ancient wizards taught magic personally by Azrai, the Raven has powers unsurpassed on Cerealia, powers he has not yet begun to tap, which is saying something because the Gorgon, I think, is actually a little bit higher level on the wizard's scale. The Raven has a special connection to the Shadow World and a unique understanding of it. Trapped there for more than a millennium, with occasional forays back into Cerealia, he's learned many of that realm's secrets, and some fear he commands forces in that dark land, which would give him access to a lot of undead. He certainly has a permanent gate to the Shadow World. Somewhere in the dark forest of Yanskia is a black tree said to contain a two-way portal to the Shadow World. If he's ever able to summon shadow armies, he would do so there, and that would be a key piece of intelligence for players to perhaps discover and then survive to tell the tale when they reach back to whatever realm it is that they're trying to escape to. Weaknesses, he does have a couple. He appears to be insecure in his status upon Cerealia. Legend has it that he's come through portals from the Shadow World before, only to be banished back again after a short time. To the Raven, 10 years is hardly an eye blink. He worries that some band of heroes or some unlooked-for power will send him screaming back into the land of the shadows before he can establish himself permanently on Cerealia. This insecurity makes him extremely cautious. He plays political games he doesn't quite understand. Another weakness, his complete detachment from the human condition to gain time. What he needs that time for does remain a mystery, but he seems unwilling or unable to use his full power for now. And his final weakness stems from his inhuman nature. More than extraordinarily intelligent, he's completely forgotten his humanity. He can't perceive the thoughts and feelings of his subjects, followers, or enemies because they're so far below him. He seems to understand this and goes cautiously out of fear that he might overthink an enemy's motives. As a result, simple plans seem to work against him, while more complex deviousness plays right into his hands. So something that could be interesting as far as, again, players discovering that weakness and somehow maybe looking to exploit it. Lieutenants. He has 7 Zarevo lieutenants, all under the same orders. They basically all control his armies, protect his borders, and collect his taxes. None have bloodlines, and he's made sure of that. And it's rumored that they're not particularly bright or talented. They were chosen because of their unswerving loyalty and fear of the Raven, and they perform their duties using the terror of their lord's name. And that could be one, too, if the players are actually looking to deal with or destabilize the Raven. Even though these guys might not be particularly bright, he could start sort of offing a lot of his lieutenants and hoping to, again, make him even more cautious. And then his current plan. So most recently, the Raven tried attacking Yedinsky over the Atka Mountains, only to be stymied by the reappearance of Vorlekiniski, the dragon of Vastayev Peak. The Raven has not given up on his invasion plans, but doesn't want to test his powers against a Cerulean dragon at this particular time. And if the players were looking to really, again, have a go against the Raven, maybe forming some sort of partnership with that dragon would be certainly a ultimate goal. Obviously, the dragon carries all kinds of power with it and is going to provide the players with an edge and something that can actually stand up to an Awnshegh in power levels as well. Or at least give him something else to think about while the players go off and do whatever their mission might be. Now, as we see in the Blood Enemy Sourcebook, again, we'll get to that in a separate video, the plan to attack Zoloskaya and Yedinsky simultaneously was revealed. Unfortunately, with the appearance of the dragon and the unexpected magical might of Zoloskaya, the Raven has had to modify his plans. He wants to annihilate his enemies, but husband his strength for some upcoming secret conflict, which who knows what that might be. Now, as far as armies go, he has a substantial one, even after losing a lot in those failed assaults. So he's got 8 units of Voss infantry, 4 cavalry, and 2 units of wing scouts. So right now still holding at 14 units, which is quite substantial, especially for a lot of these Voss armies that we've seen, which tend to be in the low single digits. So moving on to a description of the realm. It is one of the largest and southernmost lands of Vosgard. Ust-Atka once had a pleasant climate, at least better than the temperament of its rulers, but now suffers under a shadow. Its plains grow wild and unkempt, and a marsh has grown seemingly out of nowhere to spoil one of the southern provinces. The coniferous forest in the northwest of the realm has turned evil as well. Spies from Rovninodensk and goblin hunters from Kal-Kalathor report that horrors previously unknown in Cerelia have taken up residence there and made it a place to fear. And that could be fertile ground again for the DM to maybe import some things that don't normally belong in the Birthright setting. But again, maybe you could also throw in some Shadow World, some extra undead encounters and stuff like that, just to again throw the players in different directions. And just keep it suitably frightening too. Still, though, the land produces more than enough food to supply the Raven's armies, and he trades the surplus with less fortunate Voss realms. The Awnshegh imports ore and other supplies for his soldiers and appears to be fixated on creating a vast storehouse of weapons, armor, and other gear. Perhaps one of the Raven's earlier bids for power on Cerelia failed for lack of preparation. Then, getting into some important sites. So, as a larger realm, there's definitely going to be interesting things to explore for players. So, the capital, first of all. When the Raven took power, he built a fortress around the Shadow Tree in Yanskia and relocated the capital to that dark province. Nearly half the Raven's vast army lives in and around Zarkutzan, a Voss word meaning dark keep. It also translates as Shadowgate in Dwarvish. Many legends surround the newly constructed fortress. Whispered rumors state that the keep was imported from the Shadow World, stone by stone, and its walls remain unusually resistant to Cerulean magic. So, it should be, again, suitably frightening for the players, and also to discover that fact. Should they use magic to try and damage it, right? Another tale tells that the former Zarevos and Zarevas of Ustadka, those who did not jump quickly on the Raven's call, were walled up in magical oubliettes at the corners of the keep and kept alive through his magics. They can still be heard howling in their mad torment on particularly dark nights. And whether that's true or not, but again, could be fun and suitably horrible and frightening for the players to discover that too, should they find themselves this far. The final legend, the final legend is the most frightening. Once, the pine forest around the keep offered good hunting and an excellent source of lumber. Now, emanations from Zarukzan have polluted the forest. It seems to exist simultaneously, again, in both Cerulia and the Shadow World. The locals, even the Raven's most loyal soldiers, call it Kuzkathka, the Cursed Wood. So again, should be, again, suitably frightening for the players, and again, DM should be more than free to import, again, different undead, make it just suitably frightening encounters with different monstrosities, and even just whatever the player wants, or whatever the DM wants to come up with that he or she feels right, is relating to the Shadow World. Other cities here, only one true city remains, and that one barely survives. Many people outside the realm still believe Magdagrad to be the Raven's capital. He often uses it as a base of operations, and that's probably why. But the Raven has a special hatred, the source of which is unknown, for the former capital, and appears there only on his way north to Zarkutzan, or when he feels particularly sadistic. Since taking power, the Raven has systematically pillaged and reduced Magdagrad until it's become a haunted shadow of its former glory. But all's not lost. Those who remain are afraid to leave. He does have, the Raven enjoys having people there to torment occasionally, but a few have begun to turn against their tormentor. They've joined with Pietro's men to form a small secret pocket of resistance in the city. And again, that could be one where the players come in. And so they're eager to bring about the Raven's downfall, but obviously there's going to be a lot involved in trying to do that. That they can exist right at the heart of his realm shows how little the region understands of politics and the nature of mortals. And again, should the players start coming to figure out what one of his weaknesses is, in this case, again, he's just so detached from humanity, they could start forming strategies that would take advantage of that and hopefully start destabilizing him more. Other sites, Hunter's Peak on the very northern border of the Akar Bluffs shelters Natalia Geriver, level 9 thief, and neutral good, and her small band. They subsist by hunting among the mountains and into Nikoli's forests, and also by occasionally raiding the Raven's armed camps or the Wing's trading caravans. Occasionally, the lieutenant in charge of that area sends out scouts to trap or kill Natalia, but they failed so badly that he prefers to let the matter lie. Rumor has it that Hunter's Peak contains part of an ancient dwarven settlement, and that Natalia and her band could walk through the dwarven tunnels from Akar Bluffs to the Manicore's domain without even coming up for air. Perhaps this is how she avoids the Raven's troops, and again, would be an interesting site for the players to discover, and hopefully see if that's true. And that could be a way of also organizing and building up resistance forces. Other sites here, so Grigori Handel, level 8 Ranger, also neutral good and a solid bloodline, has been a thorn in the Raven's side since the beginning of the Awnsheg's rule, but the Raven doesn't seem to notice. Currently, Grigori's base of operations lies in Ion, just north of the Atka Mountains, hidden from the small army camp stationed in the north of the province. Dug out of a low hill and hidden from sight by long wild grass, the Raven's patrols have walked over his headquarters more times than he can count. Currently, he uses the southern layer mostly to hide or funnel refugees from Ust-Atka, those people who have gotten on the Awnsheg's bad side. So again, another potential resource to cultivate and a force to maybe help with dealing with the Raven if we can start banding all these different people together that really don't want to be dealing with the Raven anymore and be under his rule. Still, though, even as many of them as there are, and with some fairly high-level folks, I mean, the Raven still is, again, in the teens on both of his classes, so again, just a formidable force to take on in person. So there'd have to be so much destabilizing work, and maybe figure out a way to send him back to the Shadow World as well. Then we'll cover the important NPCs next here. Posing as a guard in the service of the army stationed in Ion, Grigori Handel seems to be able to assume any guise necessary to escape detection, perhaps some combination of blood abilities, knack for disguise, etc. Curiously, the Raven also seems to have a blind spot where Grigori, or Pietro, as he's often called, and his holdings are concerned. The man has slowly established a few refuges in most of Ust-Atka's provinces, with the notable exception of the province of Ust-Atka and Yanskia, two of the Raven's strongholds. And he's even created a few holdings in the area. Supposedly the last surviving Zarevo from before the Raven's takeover, many claim Grigori is actually invisible to the Raven's physical and magical sight, which does make him a potentially potent threat to the Raven. Moving on, Natalia Geriver has less impressive pedigree, but still manages to impress those who hear of her. Blooded and tenacious, she has clung to a tiny guild holding in the Akar Bluffs for nearly 5 years, and still refuses to flee over the border or submit to the Raven's lieutenants, though it may be argued that she is hardly worth the Raven's considerations, let alone the trouble it would take for him to root her out. She provides a necessary hero for the boss in Ust-Atka. She thumbs her nose at the Raven's lieutenants and has never once come close to being caught. With luck, she hopes to inspire a few more men and women to resist the Raven, whether openly or just in their hearts. And then finally, the last of the other important dissidents in the Raven's domain is Boris Tekhayev. Level 1 fighter, solid bloodline though, a teenage boy, and oddly enough a follower of Krisha, although interestingly with neutral alignment. Apparently the last son of the Tekhayev clan, it's a matriarchal clan devoted to the service of Krisha. He survived because the Raven had little interest in completely destroying the feeble family. When the one true church of Vosgard reigned as the official church, Krisha's followers were persecuted, and as the only clan expressly devoted to her worship, the Tekhayevs were considered peasants and cowards by other families. Now, Boris burns to redeem the name of his clan and has begun to grow to manhood under the watchful eye of his grandparents. Some say the Raven is amused by the boy's vengeful nature, while others believe the Awnshegh simply hasn't noticed him yet. Could be some combination of both on those. Certainly level 1 is not going to be a threat. After killing the former leader of the One True Church, the Raven established his own temple, the Almighty Temple of Belanik. In mockery of the old order, the Raven corrupted Vlad Griskaya, it's a level 4 priest, with the smallest bloodline I think we've ever seen printed here as far as 1, and established him as the temple's regent. Griskaya's priests have been appointed by the Raven as well, and serve as spies for the Awnshegh throughout the realm. The One True Church of Vosgard relocated under its new regent completely into Yenensky. So then Gruskaya lives in fear of his master. The Raven never leaves him in control of enough Regency to cast realm spells. The Raven just absolutely hates priestly magic and can't show the Awnshegh how valuable he could be to the Raven's plans. Part of Vlad knows that he will be destroyed if he ever shows himself as competent, but another part of him fears death at the Raven's hands if he doesn't do something to distinguish himself. Trying to figure out his master's mood has driven him half mad with worry, and he desperately longs for some way out of that terrible situation, which could come at the hands of the PCs, potentially. One way or another, certainly, as far as getting out of that. And then, as always, the last thing here, the DM secrets, which is always fun that they've added this. Adventuring in or around the Raven's domain is fraught with difficulties, but heroes can prove their worth by facing one of the most powerful and mysterious Awnshegh on the continent. Again, he's right up there with the Gorgon, more or less. Boris Tekayev, the last son of the clan, will be reaching manhood soon. Or, consumed by his desire for revenge, he could be destroyed by the Raven or his operatives at any time. Contrary to his grandparents' wishes, he's decided to steal into the Raven's fortress and attempt to kill the Awnshegh in hand-to-hand combat. Good luck. This could be disastrous for the realm. The boy cannot threaten the Raven even remotely, but could anger him. After drinking Boris's bloodline, the Raven might begin to perceive the small pockets of resistance that exist throughout the land. He may take steps against Pietro's men, the hunters, or others who have managed to hide for so long. So the boy has to be stopped before he attempts this foolish quest. Hopefully he can be persuaded and even maybe recruited by a band of heroes. He is, after all, one of only 2 surviving nobles of Usta-Utka that could someday lead a rebellion against the Raven. Certainly, maybe getting him to agree to bide his time, grow up a little bit, gain some levels, could join the party for a while as an NPC, work on training him, right? Maybe making him then like at least a nominal successor or some sort of potential figurehead at least who could sway more people towards the cause of getting rid of the Raven. Then the Wolken clan in Yenensky has heard of the Raven's defeat in the Adka Mountains. They've also heard that the Raven's forces, broken by the dragon of Vestaev Peak, are in disarray and can't order themselves. The Wolkens believe now, if ever, is the time to strike against their northern foe. They've been deceived, though. While the Raven's forces did suffer defeat, they weren't nearly as diminished as the rumors say. Again, we saw the army section there. 14 units is no joke. The Wing has spread these rumors in the hope that the Wolkens will attack across the open plains of Irtisk and head straight towards Magdragrad, which they believe to be the Raven's capital. The Raven's forces will intercept and surround them in Dimitria and destroy Yenensky's proudest defenders. This should leave the Raven's gap, the province of Ural, undefended. The Awnsheigh's forces can then attack around the mountains and run rampant all over Yenensky. Fortunately, Grigory Handel has heard of these rumors and confirmed the Wing's involvement. He's tried to get word to the Wolkens, but the Wing hunts down all his messengers. He needs someone willing and able to defeat the Wing scouts and assassins and make it to Raven's Gap before the Wolken army starts marching northward. So, and we talked about that a little bit when we were reviewing Yenensky, so that's another potentially fun quest and kind of certainly a race against time to see if the PCs can make it there to warn of not attacking. So, in plot-wise there, you could think of like almost like, if you've seen like 1917, right, where they're rushing to give this warning to not attack to the British troops. Similar situation here, right? We could have that small PC party gain word of this, and then like they're off to try and again race against time while fighting assassins and other forces, all the while, and hopefully making it that putting that real clock on the PCs reaching that area in time, could make it a certain amount of days, or even within a day, depending on where you want to start this from, right? And just have all kinds of other things thrown at the PCs just to see if they can push through it. So again, we'll have a whole lot more on the Raven when we get to the Blood Enemies description, but as far as a realm goes, it's certainly one of the most powerful Awnshegh realms on the continent, right? Including all the areas we've covered so far, but also just as an individual Awnshegh, certainly up there in power levels, right? High teens for multi-class. No joke. It has a couple weaknesses, which again is something to take note of, but also with those connections to the Shadow World, there could be all kinds of fun connections that a DM could run in this campaign. And as always, right, there's so many different intersecting quest lines that we could have here as far as a campaign goes, and maybe even taking on the Raven and again, finding a way to maybe send him back to the Shadow World and sort of resetting his whole operation here, and maybe freeing the realm too, and then maybe uniting the Voss. That could be an epic achievement that could trigger something like that. Someone strong enough to do that. Certainly you should have the strength to deal with some of the neighboring realms too. But there's also the Mana Core, which we've seen. So let us know, guys, if you've played in and around the Raven's realm. Maybe you've confronted the Raven himself. Let us know in the comments how that's gone. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe. And if you want to see videos like this early, hop over to our Patreon. We got a lot of other Birthright content and other D&D content that'll be up always for early view or exclusive to the Patreon as well, depending on your level. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.